In the late 1930s, inside what's now the National Museum of Iraq, a curator picked up a small clay jar. No decoration, no inscription, nothing that should matter. Until someone looked inside, a rolled copper cylinder, an iron rod placed dead center, and the mouth sealed with a dark, asphalt-like plug. On paper, it looks almost engineered. And here's the problem. When modern researchers recreate that exact setup and add a mild acid, something as ordinary as vinegar, it can generate a small electrical charge. Not much, less than a modern AA battery. But enough to trigger a question that refuses to go away. If it can behave like a battery, why doesn't it come with the kind of evidence a battery would need? No wires, no terminals, no linked cells, no workshop tools, no contemporary texts describing an electrical system. So what is this thing? Tonight we're not asking the clickbait question, did ancient people have electricity? We're asking the harder one, the responsible one. Why don't historians agree on what this object was actually for? Let's start with what we can say with confidence, because with this object, confidence is rare. The artifact people call the Baghdad battery is made up of 4 simple parts. A ceramic jar, roughly 12 to 15 centimeters tall. A copper cylinder fitted inside. An iron rod positioned at the center, and an asphalt-like seal closing the top. That basic description is consistent across museum summaries and most serious write-ups. The parts are real. The configuration is real. What's not ancient is the name. Baghdad battery is a modern label, one that implies a purpose the artifact itself never states. There are no inscriptions explaining it, no ancient text describing it, no tag that says, this is what this was used for. It was brought to wider attention in 1938 by Wilhelm Koenig, working with objects already in the Baghdad Museum collection. He noticed something provocative. The components resemble the layout of a simple galvanic cell, a basic battery design. But here's the first major problem, and it's the one that haunts everything that follows. The published records don't give us the kind of controlled excavation context historians rely on, so key details about where it came from and what it was found with remain disputed. And without that context, even a perfectly preserved object can become archaeologically mute, famous enough to speculate about but difficult to prove. So why did this object become famous? Because when researchers built replicas and filled them with a weak acid, like vinegar, they produced a small electrical charge, often reported in the range of roughly half a volt to just over 1 volt. That experiment proves something important: electrochemical plausibility. But plausibility is not proof. A stone can be used as a hammer, but that doesn't mean every stone was a hammer. For an electrical device to be part of an electrical system, archaeologists would expect an ecosystem of supporting evidence. Conductive wires or connectors, multiple cells designed to be linked together, a workshop environment, written or iconographic references, and in the archaeological record for the relevant periods and regions, none of that supporting system has been securely identified. So the label battery describes what the object can do in a modern test, not what it was used for. And that gap is where the controversy lives. Before we go further, it helps to define what historians mean when they say evidence. Because one object that can generate voltage is not the same thing as a technology that was used. If this jar was part of an intentional electrical practice, archaeologists would expect at least a few practical signs. Standardization, multiple examples with consistent dimensions and construction. Repeatability, signs the device was opened, refilled, and resealed many times. Connectivity, clips, wires, or conductive bridges, anything designed to move current from one place to another. Work context, tools, workbenches, or chemical containers associated with the activity. And here's the key point. Absence of evidence is not proof of absence. But when a claim is extraordinary, historians look for an extraordinary pattern, not a single, isolated object. That's why this debate stays cautious in serious archaeology. When archaeologists face an object with an uncertain function, they default to what best fits the broader material culture. And here's the twist. The most common scholarly explanation isn't electricity at all. It's storage. Scholars have noted that the ceramic jar resembles common storage vessels found at sites along the Tigris River, including Seleucia on the Tigris. In some contexts, similar jars have been associated with storing documents, papyri or parchment, especially in administrative or archival settings. Under this interpretation, the copper cylinder may have acted as a protective sleeve for a rolled scroll. The iron rod could have been a support, a fastener, or possibly a stylus-like tool. The asphalt seal would protect the contents from moisture. This explanation doesn't solve the mystery. It's simply the interpretation that requires fewer unsupported assumptions than the electrical one. But it still leaves uncomfortable questions. Why combine copper and iron this way? Why such a tight seal? And why accidentally create a configuration that can produce voltage? That's why the debate continues. If the jar was meant to store something like a scroll, the logic is straightforward. Protect fragile material from moisture, insects, and handling. But serious viewers will ask the same thing you're probably thinking. Why copper? And why seal it so tightly? Here are the strongest points for the container interpretation. It matches known behavior. We know archives existed. We know documents were stored. We know sealed containers were used. It fits the broader material culture. Similar vessel forms appear in the region. It doesn't require a missing electrical ecosystem. No wires, no linked cells, no workshop, because it wouldn't need them. And here are the honest weaknesses. Copper and iron together can corrode. So if the goal was preservation, it's not an obvious choice. The asphalt seal feels more industrial than administrative, at least to modern eyes. Without residue analysis or find context, we can't confirm what was inside. In other words, the container theory is conservative, but it's not airtight. One of the most persistent claims is that the object was used for electroplating, depositing a thin layer of metal, like gold, onto another surface. From a physics standpoint, low-voltage electroplating is possible. But archaeology doesn't evaluate ideas by what's theoretically possible. It evaluates them by material traces. If electroplating had been practiced using devices like this, historians would expect to find at least some of the following: repeated devices in consistent sets, specialized tools and workspaces, chemical residues consistent with plating solutions, clear manufacturing patterns tied to the process. None of that has been securely linked to this artifact. And there's another problem. Ancient gilding techniques in the region are already well documented, typically using fire gilding or mechanical methods, not electricity. So electroplating remains a contested interpretation. Interesting, but archaeologically unproven. This is where a lot of documentaries and a lot of internet threads go wrong. They take a modern reconstruction, watch it produce voltage, and treat that as the end of the story. But in history, a successful experiment answers only one question. Could it work? It does not answer the harder question. Was it used that way? Experimental archaeology is valuable, but it has limits. A reconstruction is built with modern intention, modern choices, modern assumptions. And with the Baghdad battery, those assumptions matter. What liquid was used, if any? How often would it need to be refilled? How would the current be transferred to another object? Why is there no clear trail of supporting equipment? So the experiment is a clue, not a conclusion. There are also more speculative proposals. Ancient writers describe electric fish being used for pain relief. So some have wondered, could a weak electrical sensation have been used therapeutically or symbolically? It's a tempting idea, and that's exactly why historians are careful with it. There are no texts describing such a device, no iconography, no supporting tools, no clear chain of evidence. So these ideas remain speculative, and they should be labeled as such. Curiosity is welcome, certainty is not. So what would it take to resolve this debate? Historians would want at least one of the following: residue analysis, identifying what was inside the jar; clear excavation records tying it to a specific activity; associated equipment that demonstrates electrical use. And here's a key point: many popular claims, like confirmed vinegar residue, are not conclusively supported by current evidence. After the 2003 looting of the Iraq Museum, access to some objects and records became more difficult, which has limited modern testing. So the artifact exists in a frustrating limbo, famous enough to speculate about, incomplete enough to resist resolution. There's another reason this story spreads so easily. The basic idea, metal inside a container, shows up in many places and many eras, and humans are pattern-seeking creatures. When we see similar shapes, we instinctively assume similar purposes. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's a trap. Containers are universal. Metal is universal. Seals are universal. So the real question isn't, why does this look familiar? It's, what specific local evidence ties this object to a specific practice? And with the Baghdad battery, that local evidence is exactly what's missing. So how should we interpret the Baghdad battery? The most responsible answer is also the least satisfying. It is an object whose components can form a simple battery, but whose intended function remains unknown. The strongest scholarly interpretation today tends to favor a non-electrical container explanation because it fits the broader archaeological record with fewer assumptions. The electrical theories are not impossible, they're simply unproven. And that may be the real lesson here. Not that the ancient world was hiding lost technologies, but that without context, even ordinary objects can become extraordinary mysteries. If archaeology teaches us anything, it's this: the past doesn't owe us neat answers, only evidence. If you had to choose based on evidence alone, container, plating, or something else, what's your call, and why?